Hey, what's up, gang? It's Wes. So Clip Studio Pro version 4.0 is out. It's out. It's out in the wild. It's funny. It kind of like stealthily released. I didn't know. I guess I wasn't keeping up with the news. But then, yeah, just had kind of a stealth drop. I paid $25 to do my perpetual license upgrade, which we'll talk about all that upgrade stuff here in a bit. But I just wanted to do a quick video about Clip Studio. Not a ton has changed. I still love it. I've loved it for a long time, but I did want to talk about a few features that might shake up your workflow a little bit. So in this, we're going to be playing around with a few of those features. That way you can kind of get a sense of them and see what they are. But really, I'm just going to be doing a quick sketchy sketch thing using one of those new features. I haven't even started the sketch yet, so you're going to see that start to happen in real time. But yeah, without further ado, let's just give some overall quick thoughts on this upgrade to Clip Studio 4.0. So here we are in Clip Studio 4.0. Yeah, like I said, I did a perpetual license upgrade, something that's kind of happened in the past, I don't know, 2 years or so with Clip Studio. Is they've done like license upgrade fees. They've also introduced like a subscription model and all sorts of other stuff. So basically what I do is I always buy what's called the perpetual license. It's one of those things, I think of it as one and done. You buy it and that's your version to keep. Now, whenever you buy a perpetual license, you do get a few updates, but then after a certain point, I don't really recall what the threshold is or how many updates you get for free, essentially. But some of the big major stuff that they add later on in that version's life cycle is usually only a subscription only thing. So kind of a weird way to do it. I mean, I understand, and they got to make money somehow for the development and stuff, because they have been adding a whole bunch of features, especially a few that we're going to talk about here momentarily. But yeah, it's, I go for the perpetual license. If you're a fan like me of the one and done, you buy a product and you kind of own it, do that. I think my upgrade fee, because I've had Clip Studio Paint since like really whenever it was called Manga Studio. So I'm an old school cat, man. But every time they do a release, you basically update your license up to a new one. And I think that costs like $25 US for me. So not bad. I try to get in pretty quick because I know sometimes they do raise that price, but enough about pricing and all that. I know on the mobile devices like tablets and, mobile, it is only subscription based. And I do think Clip Studio is worth a subscription. I don't pay a subscription. So that's more of the do as I say, not as I do type thing. But, I'm a big fan of one and done. I just don't have the budget. I don't have the license. I don't want to worry about what do I own and did I pay that and why can't I open this and blah, blah, blah. So I just buy the one and done. All right. Enough about pricing, right? Let's talk about the actual features. So I like how Clip Studio is set up. And I have for a long time, and nothing dramatic has changed on that front. The brushes still feel great. The engine's still awesome. You can still import your ABR, Photoshop, Adobe brushes. You can customize them with the Clip Studio engine. Just aces all around. Big fan of that. I know I have some. I think I have some videos about my favorite like Clip Studio brushes and stuff like that. I also sell brushes, so yeah. Big fan of the Clip Studio brush engine. That is as good as ever. I haven't noticed any real changes. I don't know if it's any faster or snappier or anything. It feels the same to me. So good news is, it was not broken, so they didn't have to fix it. So still reliable as always. Haven't had a crash, nothing like that. But really what caught my eye, there's two main things, and they're kind of related, and they have to do with the 3D models. Now, I don't do a lot of 3D. I have a ton of 3D assets. I use Unity and Blender and Unreal Engine, and they have free stuff, and there's like humble bundles that you can get, 500 assets for $30, so, that type of thing. So I have a lot of those. For a long time, I also subscribed to some 3D model services, kind of like the My Mini Factory, Loot Studio, things like that, to where you can build, or basically if you have a 3D printer, you can print out these things for like a Dungeons and Dragons or Starfinder, or, kind of your tabletop role-playing game, or wargaming like Warhammer. They would sell those, and those usually come in what's called an STL file. And an STL file, there's two different versions, or there's actually quite a few different versions, but the main two categories are pre-supported, which means that they have all the little bits and the attachments basically to make sure that it 3D prints well, and that you can cut and remove those pre-supported parts, and that way you have your model. But I usually use the unsupported files, which is basically just the 3D render of the character. Like there's no extra bits and bobs and connectors and all that stuff. It's just, the image, basically a three-dimensional image of a character. And now Clip Studio has native STL support, which is crazy. So all of these old school STL files that I've had from years and years ago, I can import and use them as a reference. So a lot of times, I don't want to copy any of these models like one-to-one because, they're not my work. They belong to the sculptor and the company and all that. But let's say there's a cool like wizard that I have an STL file of, and I really like the way that the cloth is draping off of the arm if the arm's holding a wand or what have you. Just an example. Or like, the helmet on this character, I like how it sets on the head, so I'd like to bring it into 3D and kind of move it around. That way I can get a better sense for how it's constructed. Well, now you don't have to go into Blender or something like that to open the STL file, to take screenshots, to import into Clip Studio. You can just bring that file into Clip Studio natively, start lighting it, make a new layer, do kind of your sketches or whatever, and you're good to go. That's amazing. And the other big thing is on the 3D primitives, which is basically Clip Studio's asset library that it comes stock with. So make a cube, make a sphere, make a cylinder, make a prism, any sort of like trapezoid, and make any 3D shape. And their mannequin characters, you can paint on them now, which is crazy. It is crazy. And you can use Clip Studio's native brushes. It's not like custom weird brushes that only work on 3D. No. It's your whole brush library. You can brush directly onto these 3D primitives. Now, my mind went crazy whenever I saw these two pieces of news, the STL files and the painting on 3D primitives. So I thought, oh my God, can you paint directly on STL files? Can I bring in that old wizard and like paint and then light it? Oh my God, that'd be incredible. And that would be incredible, but you cannot do that. I was kind of bummed. But here's why I got so excited about that. Breaking down a 3D model to add print or to add paint or texturing or anything to it is a headache and a half if the 3D model is not built for that in the first place. So STL files aren't made to like run in a video game. They're not made low polygon. They're not made that way. So they have millions and millions and hundreds of thousands of polygons, nice little shapes and triangles that basically come together to form your 3D object. Now, what you have to do in order to put a texture or color or something like that, any of that nice visual information as far as like painting or whatever, you have to do something called a UV unwrap. And that is an absolute torture. It's a headache. There are professionals in every entertainment industry, whether it's, movie making or video games or any sort of 3D stuff, model making, anything. Their entire job is UV unwrapping. That's all they do all day. It's a full-blown career. It's such a bear that you need a full-time dedicated person just to unwrap these freaking models. So I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I could bring in the STL file and just paint on it directly in Clip and completely forget about UV unwrapping and all that stuff. But sadly, you cannot. I'm an old school guy, so I used to play around with like the Quake 2 and Quake 3 engine. This is like pre-1999 type stuff, right? So I used to play with that, and like those would be called meshes, BSP meshes. And basically, it would basically UV unwrap all of these things for you, and you could add textures to your levels in Quake. So like I'm getting kind of technical nitty gritty, but that's what I was hoping I could do with this Clip Studio thing. Sadly, you cannot, but that doesn't mean that painting on the 3D primitives is any worse. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it'd be cool to be able to get an STL file, a big elaborate multi-billion, polygon thing and paint on it. That'd be incredible. But using the built-in 3D primitives, you can do some incredible stuff. And that's actually what I'm going to be doing here is bringing in one of those primitives. I know they have some facial, like expression nodes and stuff now, which, if I find them, I haven't even started this painting yet, but if I find them while I'm editing, I'm going to mess with those as well, try to get an expression and stuff and kind of show you how I would go about using these 3D models in a painting. And now that you can paint them, you can just paint onto them. It's going to do wonders for making sure the form is okay. How does the color change, the local color change whenever it's lit a certain way from a different point light, from a bounce light, like a lot of more kind of intermediate to advanced stuff. Now you get those questions answered natively in Clip Studio. You don't have to go into like a Blender or something or Maya or, whatever to get that feedback now. And that is massive. It is huge. It is huge. It is huge. So even more you can do as a one-stop shop within Clip Studio. So I'm a big fan of them going that route. And I know they've done stuff for animation. I'm not an animator, so I can't really comment on it. But there's a lot going on under the hood of this program. And they continue to deliver every single time. Whenever there's a big version change, like going from version 2 to version 3 or version 3 to version 4, there's a huge list of things that they have improved and added. And like, I know there's like a new gradient map system that they're working with. Like there's a bunch of stuff going on here. So I will have a link to kind of the update features and kind of what's new in Clip Studio 4.0. I'll have a link to that in the description. But I just wanted to do the quick overview that I think this 3D, like painting on the 3D primitives thing, is a big, big deal because it really simplifies something that can be an absolute headache if you're trying to do it the quote unquote old fashioned correct way of like, well, now I need to get the model and now I need to get the topology of the model clean. So that way, when I do the mesh cuts on the UV sculpt and then it unwraps it, then I can put that into Photoshop or Substance Painter or whatever, and then go in, try to do that, try to make sure it works right and it looks good, then rewrap the model with this new tech. Like don't worry about that. You know what I mean? If you just need a basic 3D model in a cool pose and you want to make sure that like, oh, well, their shirt is green, well, their pants are blue, I want a little bit of dirt or a little bit of texture on this just to see how the light plays with it, you can go for it, man. You can just paint directly on those models. And that's crazy. It's crazy. Technology's nuts, man. Big, big fan. But yeah, I mean, not much else to say about Clip Studio, really. I love it. I've been really using and have been a big fan of the Krita to Clip Studio pipeline. So starting with like sketches and all that stuff and kind of the rough painterly look in Krita using, let's say, the RGBA or the Memulio brushes, and then going into Clip Studio with the more refined brushes. So I have a lot of painterly brushes that I've made. I have tons of stuff like Greg Rakowski's brush packs and Lane Brown's brush packs. I have hundreds of brush packs, ridiculous, and I make my own. So there's always something to choose. There's always something to have in Clip Studio to solve whatever problem I might, need fixing. And yeah, the only thing that I seem to be using stuff like Photoshop for now is more of the color management and like it used to even be color balancing, but now Clip Studio has a really good color balance filter that I can use now too. So it's less and less that I have to go anywhere else besides Krita or Clip to get kind of the post-production stuff. It can kind of really touch on everything that I might need. If I need a more specialized like paint engine, I'll still go to Rebel. I'll still go to ArtRage. And if I'm on mobile, of course, I'll do like a Procreate or PaintStorm Studio. Infinite Painter, something like that. So I always have options. But really, the Crit Clip workflow has been great for me. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. 4.0 for Clip Studio has been great. Like I said, no crashes, no weird bugs that I've found, nothing like that. But I also don't really push it to its limit. I don't know, with all these 3D primitives I can, paint on, maybe I might start pushing it to the limit. Who knows? But that's it. That's it for me. Kind of a quick one, a quick kind of roundabout way of coming around, talking about Clip Studio some more. Yeah, I've already made some videos about the brushes I love and, the kind of the workflow and things like that. But if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Have you used Clip Studio 4.0? Are you interested in using any of these 3D asset things and painting on it, or STL imports or anything like that? Has that caught your eye, or are you more on kind of the color grading side or the animation side? I'd love to hear in the comments what you're using the newest updates for. But until we meet again, you know the drill. Go out there, make cool art, and we will see you next time. Peace.